It's the recruiting season, and USC's football staff, with Eric Henderson, they're out hunting for some dogs.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Holkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC, part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube or wherever you want to download your podcast, never forget this show is free, and always remember how much I appreciate your support. You can show your appreciation if you're watching on YouTube. Become a subscriber, smash that thumbs up button, and do not forget to hit that bell notification. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers, you're getting $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. You spell dog, D-A-W-G, discipline, attitude, work ethic, and grit. That's the attitude that USC's new defensive line coach, Eric Henderson, is bringing on over to the campus. Right now, he's out recruiting. He's on the road, as well as most of the USC coaching staff, a.k.a. Coach Henderson. He's out there. He's earning his gold plates. And while he's not going to be putting on a helmet this year for USC, he is out there, earning his recruiting bones, I guess is the best way to put it. He's out there in SEC country right now, and he was squeezing in some visits with some guys that, I think everyone would like to see at USC. He's already recruiting for 2025. On Monday, Coach Henderson stopped by O'Gallie High School. I hope I pronounced that right. Eaugallie. O'Gallie. Anyways, they're located in Melbourne, Florida. And he was checking in on 4-star defensive lineman Brandon Brown, who, by the way, he's currently committed to the Texas Longhorns. Like I mentioned, class of 2025. He's listed 6'2", 275 pounds. He's going into his senior season in high school. He's going to be a little bit bigger by the time he enrolls wherever he ends up. This is what he had to say about meeting Coach Henderson. It was great. He's as genuine as they come. I really enjoyed my time with him. We spoke about life and how to create good habits. Also, he spoke about his career coaching in the NFL, and he spoke about him coaching Aaron Donald. And he said that he sees a lot of Aaron Donald in me, end quote. I'm going to start keeping my own little tally sheet of how many players he says that to, where he says, I see a lot of Aaron Donald in you. Because you got to be careful. It's a great recruiting line, and I would use it often, but I would tell the guys, don't tell anybody else I said that. I think if you say it too much and it gets out there, probably going to lose a little bit of its effect, its flair, its appeal. Brandon Brown told WeRSC.com's Marshall Levinson that he plans on actually visiting USC in a couple of weeks, February 2nd to be in fact. I'm going to stay down there in Florida. Someone else who Eric Henderson got around and visited, his name is Myron Charles. And he's another 2025 defensive lineman. Big boy, 6'5", 260 pounds. And he has offers from everyone. And when you go watch his junior season film, you understand why. He's got offers from everyone. Just a big, strong bully. He's overpowering the competition right now. I'm not saying that's, it's a red flag, but you can really tell he's a man among boys in high school. Will he be able to, make that transition once he gets to college? I'm thinking, yeah. Again, when you have programs like Ohio State and Georgia and Notre Dame and everybody and their mom looking at you, you probably you've got the eye of some really good programs. They're forecasting a very good future for you. So I want to see what Coach Henderson can do with that guy. He looks like he's an interior type of guy, especially when you see his film. Yeah, you can see it. This February signing day is getting here really quickly. and Lincoln Riley, his staff, they still have some spots available. Right now, USC has 21 committed, verbally public committed recruits for 2024. I have a really good feeling that USC is going to get a Big 10, 14, 18, however many teams are in the big conference. They're going to get a linebacker. Portage, Michigan, Northern linebacker. His name's Jaden Walker. I mentioned this name before. He's committed to Michigan State right now. And when I say committed, I've got my finger quotes up. But they have a new defense. Michigan State has an entire new coaching staff. Jonathan Smith came over from Oregon State. And USC has a new and better defensive coaching staff. And Antonlynn and linebacker coach Matt Entz have been, for these last, 4 weeks or so, ever since they've been on board, they've been developing a relationship with this young man. Coach Matt Entz stopped by his high school last week. And Jaden Walker's position coach at Portage High School is it Portage or Northern? Anyways, Portage, Michigan, Northern High School. Get that straight. Coach Entz stopped by and visited last week. And Jaden Walker's position coach in high school was recruited and coached by Matt Entz at Winona State. So I have a feeling that Coach Entz probably got a good recommendation from one of his former pupils. So that's got to be working in USC's advantage, right? Yeah. If Coach Riley and Coach Lynn and Coach Entz can get Walker to flip from being a Spartan to becoming a Trojan, that's going to give USC 22 commits for the class in 2024. So if I get to choose, remember, you're allowed to bring in 25 per class, but you still have to deal with the 85-man roster. So you bring in 25 guys, you still got to make room for those 25, right? So if I get to choose, we're at 22 if you flip Jaden Walker. You got 3 more spots open. Give me one more offensive lineman, one more defensive lineman, and give me another wide receiver. Yes, we need another wide receiver. Now, should Lincoln Riley save those spots for the transfer window that's going to open up later this spring? Possibly. I know some were hoping that because what I did is I went looked at the transfer portal, and I looked at the positions of need, like offensive line, defensive line, and wide receiver. And I know as far as offensive line, some were hoping. I know some Trojan fans had mentioned, hey, Mark, USC should go get Parker Railsford, the center who was at the University of Washington. I think that's a great idea. Unfortunately, he's following his head coach, Kalen DeBoer, from Washington over to Alabama. Alabama needed a center. I think he's stepping right into the starting spot. However, there is I guess he's going to be a sophomore in 2024. He played interior offensive line for Washington. 6'3", 300 pounds. Landon Hatchett. What about him? He was a true freshman. He played in 9 games this past year. And he was also named the Travis Spring Most Outstanding Freshman at Washington's postseason banquet. Look, I don't know a whole lot about Washington's program, but I know that when you're being called the outstanding freshman, your teammates are voting on that. And again, postseason banquet, your teammates said, hey, that was the best freshman in the class. You could probably make room for someone like him on USC's roster, I would think. And as far as defensive line guys in the portal, I didn't see anybody there that in my opinion, that I think USC should just throw an offer at and say, hey, come play. No. I have a feeling that spot or spots are going to get filled in the next go around after spring camp when the transfer portal window opens up again. Remember, it's not just USC who's going to be maybe seeing some players leave. You got programs all over the country who are going to reassess their situation. So let's find out. And as far as wide receivers, those things grow on trees. So again, I'm not overly concerned if Lincoln Riley can't find one more to sign when the February signing day rolls around. Again, they grow on trees. The transfer portal will be just fine. And let's remember, USC's got 4 really talented, they're going to be sophomores this season. Zachariah Branch, Deuce Robinson, Makai Lemon, and Jacoby Lane. Plus, they brought in Jaden Richardson, the transfer already. You've got Kyron Hudson. USC's okay at wide receiver, but again, you could probably bring in at least 1, 2 more. Lincoln Riley likes to roll deep with his wide receivers, so we'll find out. So there you have it. A little bit of a recruiting update. Coach Henderson, he's down there in SEC country. He's hunting for some dogs. Lincoln Riley, he's out making some visits. Let's get that. Let's keep that momentum going right up until signing day. Then we're going to get into spring camp, and then you got that transfer portal window. So again, options out there, and there will be more options later in the spring. The NFL regular season note is over. We are deep into the playoffs. It's the championship weekend coming up. And there's still time for you to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers, you're getting $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets if you win or lose. And the FanDuel app is so easy to use. They've got so many different ways to bet, like their same game parlays. They've got a parlay hub. They show you different ways to combine your bets. And you can find new ways to bet in their Explore tab. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and make your first bet an easy score. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Quote, you just got to let people know they suck sometimes, end quote. Those are the words from a really wise Trojan captain and locker room voice, Travis Dye. A lot of you girls, hey, I remember who said that. Back in the during the spring camp 2022, I asked Travis Dye. I asked him, what's up with your trash talking skills? Austin Jones said, hey, you know what? Travis likes to talk. He likes to run some junk. So after one spring practice, I said, Travis, talk to me about this. Tell me a little bit about it. And I wanted to know from Travis specifically, when he thought it was the right time, to start talking some smack, getting in his teammates' faces. And it was just the way he answered the question. It was just so matter-of-factly. He was referring to when he basically said, when the energy needs to be picked up. Sometimes you just got to tell guys, hey, you suck. And he was saying, they don't really, but you're trying to get the best out of them. Pick up the energy. Leaders recognize, they know when somebody has a little bit more effort. Give that little extra push. And on that particular day, he said he had to tell a few people, hey, you guys suck. Let's go. Remember, this was Lincoln Riley's first season at USC. A lot of roster turnover. This is going to be year 3 for Lincoln Riley. Obviously, Travis Dye, he's out there in the NFL now. Is it just me? Look, we know that something was missing from USC in 2023, specifically defense. But there was something else that was missing. And I'm sure there are guys who are capable, but it's not easy taking on the role of a leader. It's not. Trust me. But when you're taking on the responsibility of wanting to be the guy that, your teammates, people turn to when they need something, whether it's a swift kick in the ass or, maybe they just need a shoulder to lean on, someone to talk to, or just leading by example, without knowing for sure, it kind of felt like they needed another Travis Dye last year. So again, and there might have been someone I think there was one person, but again, he was new to the team, and I don't know if he fully embraced the role. I have a feeling he's going to embrace the role in 2024, and I'll get to that in a second. So, who are some of the candidates to be Captain Trash Talk? I guess because usually it's going to be a team captain. Now, if it's hard for an adult to want that type of role, imagine being a true freshman and knowing when to say something, and more importantly, when to wait your turn. I mean, just because you're a highly ranked player, that doesn't mean your opinion carries any extra weight. I think you've got to earn your respect. Just being, a high 4-star, a 5-star, that doesn't mean you automatically get respect. It's like, I don't know, it's kind of like walking into practice and you're wearing sunglasses and you're telling, you might not say it, but you're telling people, I'm the dude. And when guys who have been around the program for 3, 4, 5 years, and they're looking at you going, no, you're not. That's not taking on a leadership role. So what I did is I went back and I looked at the 2023 roster and who's coming back. And I want to see who's qualified to tell someone they suck. Now, freshmen, they take a big leap of growth from their freshman to their sophomore season. Not just physically maturing, but emotionally as well. They really start to come into their own. So I'm wondering, has Zachariah Branch earned that honor? I know he's a good student. He's a great player, but I don't know, is he a get in your face type of guy when it's necessary? I don't know. What about his older brother, Zion? Maybe it's just me reading the room, but I kind of get the impression that Zion likes to lead by example. He's that type of guy. What about a linebacker? I mean, you've got Rajon Davis, you've got Eric Gentry, Mason Cobb, you've got the transfer coming in from Oregon State, Easton Mascarenas-Arnold. I don't know anything about him, his personality. I'm going to try and do a deep dive as we get closer to spring camp. I'm going over, as you saw on yesterday's episode of Locked On USC, favorite recruit in the class of 2024. Each week, I'm going to go over 1 or 2 players. So even the transfers are going to be a part of that. I think the first true Travis Dye type that I see from that group, and I said, I don't know if he fully embraced it last year. I think it's going to be Jamil Muhammad. I really do. I think he's going to be that guy. I know the guy's not afraid to tell someone what needs to be said. Just the way he carries himself in his candid answers, especially with the media. I have a feeling when practice is going on and when the cameras aren't around, he's that dude. And I really hope he is. I think every locker room needs at least one of those types of guys. I'm not sure why, but I kind of get the impression that Deuce Robinson, he comes across as a guy who would probably like to talk some junk, inspire his teammates to be better. When you're 6'6", 225, 230 pounds, you can say and do a lot of things that will make people listen to you. I mean, you're intimidating. Let's be honest here. What about Makai Lemon? He's got that swag. I know one thing about Makai from watching him play in high school and especially watching him play defensive back at the end of the regular season and the way he played wide receiver in the Holiday Bowl. He plays hard every snap. So, I don't know if he's a big talker, but I love the way he carries himself when the lights are on. Is there anybody on the O-line that would qualify for Captain Trash Talk? I want to say Gino Quinones in the locker room is the type of guy who has earned the respect. And when he wants to say something, everybody's going to listen. Another Justin Dedich type of player. I don't get the sense that Jonah Monheim needs to say anything. He might just need to look at you, kind of shake his head like, No, that's probably going to send the message. That's enough talk from Jonah, because Jonah does everything right. I mean, the coaching staff loves this guy. There's a reason he played left tackle last year, because he knows what it takes to be a team player. He knows what it means to sacrifice. I like Jacoby Lane. I'm going to put him in this category. He came in kind of under the radar, or maybe not under the radar, but he was the least heralded among, the four receivers they brought in: Zachariah, Deuce, Mackay. By the way, Jacoby Lane. But he's got that confidence about him that talks smack every time he steps on the field. So until further notice, I'm going to go with Jamil Muhammad, Deuce Robinson, Mackay Lemon, and Jacoby Lane. And I know most people think he's a really nice guy, but remember, Lincoln Riley likes his quarterbacks to be a team captain. I'm going to say don't mess with Moss. Again, he comes across as a really nice guy, really very gregarious, always has a smile on his face. The reason why I'm saying you don't want to screw around with Miller, one, because he's probably smarter than you, and two, because he's the type of guy who say, all right, I heard you. Now I'm going to go embarrass you on the field. So don't try and upstage him. That's the type of player I love. I think Miller Moss is a smack talker with his play. He'll say, oh, remember what you said 2 minutes ago? Go pick that up. That's who he is. Most of you know when I'm not doing the Locked On USC show 5 times a week, part of a Locked On network, every day, I'm also over there on WeAreSC.com. And I like to, do some writings 3 times a week, maybe more. Well, this has nothing to do with any of the columns that I've written recently. But there is a topic that seems to come up every now and then, at least 3 times a year. We got it in early. We're still in January. It came up. It's kind of like the black uniform thing. This is another thing that needs to be tossed in the garbage and not brought up again. I know it will be, but just putting it out there. It's the idea of dropping Notre Dame from the USC's out-of-conference schedule. That idea is absurd. Why should USC schedule? The question is, why should USC make their out-of-conference schedule harder now that they're a member of the big conference? The follow-up question, why not be more like the SEC? Schedule a cupcake and maybe schedule 2, especially like one right before your rivalry game, which they're notorious for doing. This is USC's out-of-conference schedule this coming season. LSU, neutral site game in Las Vegas. They host Utah State, and they host Notre Dame at the end of the season. Plus, you got your 9 conference game schedule. Look, I think where the problem is people are still thinking like the BCS and the 4-team playoff is going to keep a 2-loss team out. We're going to the 12-team playoff system, folks. We're going to the 12-team playoff system. 2-loss teams are going to be the norm. Accept that. Understand that. It's going to happen. In fact, I would say at least 4, maybe even 5, maybe 6 of the teams that are going to be in the 12-team system this year will have at least 2 losses. And I'm thinking 4 or 5 of those teams are going to come from the big conference and from the SEC. So let me throw this scenario out there for you. Okay? Because, why should USC get dinged for playing such a hard schedule? No. Look at it from this point of view. Let's say USC loses by 1 point to LSU. Okay? And they're at Michigan this year, and they lose by a field goal or less. And God forbid they somehow lose a 1-point game to Notre Dame at the Coliseum. But USC ends up winning the big conference. Is a 10-3 USC, is that good enough to get you into the playoffs? I think it is. But USC does not and should never schedule down. Here's an example why the USC fan base will not stand for it. Remember that UC Davis experiment that never happened, never left the laboratory? It's because there was an uproar. Big-time donors at USC said, no, get those guys off the schedule. Pay the buyout. And I understand UC Davis was moving up. Still, it's about perception. USC should not be playing schools like UC Davis. And don't tell me, well, they beat Stanford one year. I don't care. What was that the year? Buddy Tevens was coaching the team? And I know a lot of my viewing audience is a little bit younger, but there was actually a time when USC played in the Pac-8 and you had that conference schedule, and USC's out of conference schedule, Notre Dame, Arkansas, Alabama. I mean, Arizona State, when Arizona State was part of, whatever conference they were in at the time. It's okay to schedule up. It's okay to lose tough games. You don't need to be undefeated anymore. You don't need to have one loss on your resume anymore. It's okay to keep some college tradition alive. It's the one thing that's holding this whole mess together right now. College football is moving in a new direction, but it's moving too fast. You've got the transfer portal, you got NIL, you've got the super conferences. Can we hold on to a little bit of tradition? Some annual rivalries? I think it's okay. That's why this idea needs to be tossed in the dumpster with those black uniforms. Burn it. Let's not bring this up again, okay? I know you will. I know we'll talk about it more. I know I'll tell you why that we're not going to do this ever again. But I had to get that off my chest. It's not really a Friday rant, but I think people need to understand. In the 12-team playoff system that everyone's moving into, especially with the super conferences, that's going to be the pool of teams you're playing your games against. You're not going to be scheduling I know USC's got Utah State this year, but there's nothing wrong with taking one Mountain West Conference opponent and then scheduling LSU and Notre Dame, or Notre Dame and Alabama, or Notre Dame and Arizona from the Big 12 Conference. There's nothing wrong with that. Or Cal or Stanford from the ACC. Something to think about, folks. Just because you're making the path easier doesn't mean it's better. Sometimes there's a lot of pride in doing something that nobody else is doing. And again, you're not cutting off your nose to spite your face because, well, you know what? Those guys had an easier schedule and it's not hurting them getting into the playoffs. We'll see what happens as we go forward. Again, I think strength of schedule is going to play a much larger role in the playoff committee choosing teams. I think it's okay to have a quality loss and have it weigh just the same as a mediocre win against a Utah State. So there you go. Another episode of Locked on USC in the books. I'll be back with another one tomorrow. That's what we do. So until then, everyone, you know what to do.